What happens when the greatest MMA striker meets the most brutal kickboxer?
Alex Pereira is literally the scariest striker on earth. That dude has nuclear power. He's got crazy power.
At UFC 281, we are delighted to see a once-in-a-lifetime fight. That is, we have the pleasure to witness two of the greatest fighters meeting in their prime. Israel Adesanya and Alex Pereira will be meeting for the third time, competing under the biggest stage at the peak of their career. You see, the build-up for this rivalry could not have been scripted better.
The style bender is supreme.
He is definitely the most feared man in combat sports.
This whole storyline is just the best.
As their story will go, these two men met as rising prospects 5 years ago.
That's a beautiful story, man, and I like it. I like the way this is going to end.
With both talents nearing the pinnacle of striking, an epic match took place and the man who possesses the hands of stone came out the victor. 6 months later, Po Atan will become the undisputed best kickboxer in the world.
The best pound-for-pound fighter in the world today. He has done it! Glory's first ever two-division world champion! Is this the best striker on the planet?
Yeah, I agree. It has to be.
Can anyone stop that man?
After knocking out Adesanya, Pereira would dominate the kickboxing world for 4 years straight. He didn't just defeat the best in the world, he absolutely destroyed them.
Truly one of the most terrifying human beings. He hits people and it doesn't even make sense. But he hits them, it's like he's a heavyweight and they're a lightweight. I'm telling you, he's got fucking freaky power. Like everybody goes unconscious.
With godlike power, Pereira went on an unprecedented run, becoming the only man to win the Glory kickboxing belt in 2 divisions. This accomplishment makes Pereira the greatest kickboxer to ever transition successfully to MMA, knocking out nearly everyone who stood before him and earning a UFC title contention within 3 fights. His knockout ratio is also insane. All 25 of his amateur fights were by knockout, and when you combine it with 33 of his professional wins, he has a whopping 80% knockout ratio. Then there's Israel Adesanya, the style bender. From losing twice in a row at the pinnacle of kickboxing, he rose like a phoenix in the UFC. His run was so historic that despite all of Pereira's legendary accomplishments, he is still known as the guy who defeated Israel Adesanya. It's no surprise for anyone who paid attention. Stylebender is the most stylistic fighter of our generation, capturing the heart of fight fans all around the world. He is the man who can enter God mode.
I hit this mode called God mode where I just feel like this guy can't touch me. And you just hit God mode and it's like, yeah, I've got this guy by the bag.
This is just the most sophisticated of the strikers. What he's doing something very different. He's reading you, and he can see like weaknesses in people.
He does things that so many people can't even dream of.
Adesanya will go on a historic run to win the UFC Championship, remaining undefeated in 12 middleweight bouts. Many of you also know this channel for accurately predicting Adesanya's historic rise. Upon entering the UFC in 2018, I predicted that Israel Adesanya would become the next UFC champion on the basis that he was the best striker to enter the UFC. Many people doubted along the way, but the prediction came true with the arrival of a dominant striker. The elite striking circle understood that his vision, range control, and integration of multiple styles is something that no fighter has seen in the UFC before. The blending of elite boxing, kickboxing, and Muay Thai allowed what looked like an effortless transition into MMA. In the middleweight division, Adesanya is undefeated at 23-0, with all 12 of his fights outside of the UFC by knockout. At UFC 281, with both men at the pinnacle of combat sports, legendary legacy is at stake.
Sorry, forget every other fight. If there's ever a fight I have to win, it's this one. It's this one.
If Adesanya wins, he cements himself as the greatest middleweight of all time. If Pereira wins, he becomes the middleweight king who dominated both kickboxing and MMA. Subscribers of this channel would know that I also predicted that this would happen a year ago when Po Atan entered the UFC. Now that 2 historic predictions have come true, the rise of Adesanya and the rise of Pereira, I will lay out the path to victory for both fighters and include a third prediction. Fight fans, welcome to the blueprint of UFC 281 title fight, the battle for the King of Kings.
And this time when I put you on skates, I'm gonna leave you frozen like Elsa.
To know how this fight will play out, we must examine the first two fights. Even though Adesanya is the champion, the pressure is on him to correct the first two losses. Most people think that because Adesanya has 2 losses to Pereira, the latter has the clear advantage. But if we actually look at the fights, that is not exactly true. Israel Adesanya versus Alex Pereira 2. In the second fight, Adesanya was clearly outboxing Pereira. In fact, he was dominating the fight until he got caught. Izzy had the accuracy, the volume, and the effectiveness. In orthodox stance, Izzy could even take Pereira's best shots, including his left hook. But the most important detail in this fight was how comfortable Pereira was against Izzy's southpaw left cross. This made the biggest difference. Pereira was able to counter this specific attack multiple times. When Adesanya was in orthodox, however, he could take Pereira's best shots and score with relative ease. You see, Pereira does not do well against a fighter who can throw long jabs and crosses. This has been a consistent theme throughout his career. In orthodox, Adesanya can easily pull away and evade Pereira's punches. He has clear vision, speed, and technical advantage. Switching from orthodox to southpaw is a part of Stylebender's DNA throughout his career. The dynamism creates unpredictability for most of his opponents. And even against Pereira, he is able to score well with his southpaw left kicks. But based on this fight, the southpaw cross must be avoided given how high Pereira's sensitivity to it is. In orthodox scenarios, most of Pereira's best moments come from Izzy throwing a left hook, either to the body or the head. But against Izzy's jabs and crosses, he really had no answer. If Izzy simply stays on the outside to score with his punches and kicks, it would have been a dominant fight. Throughout the fight, if Pereira led with shots as the aggressor, Izzy would easily evade. He exposed a clear weakness as well. Throughout Pereira's career, he's kept a loose left guard and it's allowed him to be quite hittable with the right hand. In this fight, that's exactly what Izzy exploited over and over again. Towards the end of the second round, Adesanya nearly finished Pereira. The ref stepped in and gave the count, and if this was MMA, there was a strong chance that Adesanya would have continued the momentum to finish the fight. To Pereira's credit though, he rallied back and continued the fight with heart. In the third round, Izzy decided to switch stances more often, and each time he threw the left hand in southpaw, it was countered. What ended the fight was exactly that. Pereira's signature left hook landed on Izzy's chin when he darted in for a southpaw cross. The lessons from this fight are clear as day. If Adesanya never threw the left cross in southpaw, he would have dominated this fight. All Izzy needed was straight jabs and crosses in the orthodox stance, as well as the occasional kick in both orthodox and southpaw. The only techniques Pereira could counter were Izzy's left hooks in orthodox and southpaw crosses. If Izzy just avoids doing that, it's a very clear path to victory. Although Adesanya would later regret throwing too many right hands, there is nothing wrong with it as long as he just mixed it up rather than purely hunting a finish. If he continued to pick the right hand wisely by setting it up, there's a high possibility that it would lead to a finish. After all, it wasn't the spamming of the right hand that got him in trouble, it was only the left hand in southpaw. The blueprint is clear: do not exchange left hooks with Pereira, and do not throw the southpaw cross against him. Because Po Atan generally cannot play the points game of the best long-range fighters, he often waits for them to get comfortable and then chucks his signature punches to knock them out. That means anyone who fights him can never be too comfortable, even if they have all the momentum. Israel Adesanya versus Alex Pereira 1. For some reason, everyone just assumes Adesanya lost this fight and Pereira dominated. After reviewing the fight, that wasn't the case at all. During the stare down, the energy was intense and fighting words were exchanged. But the fight itself was somewhat anticlimactic. However, the winner of this fight was not actually victorious. If we score the fight by clean and effective technique, which is how any fight should be scored, in round 1, Adesanya was initially leading 16 hits to Pereira's 9. Pereira rallied back in the end of the round to pull it closer, with the round ending in 16 hits to 14. In round 2, Adesanya was way ahead in the first half of the round, landing 16 hits to Pereira's 3 hits. Pereira again rallied back in the second half, racking up 12 points to Adesanya's 22 clean hits. During the second half, Pereira pressured forward, which scored good aggression points, but no shots really landed. In round 3, Adesanya landed 23 clean hits, and Pereira landed 8. Izzy found a home for the right hand in the last round, and those were his most significant shots. Overall, this was an awkward fight, with both fighters having some trouble figuring out each other's style. However, Izzy outlanded Pereira every round, with the total tally being 61 for Izzy and 34 for Pereira, which should be a clear win in any scoring criteria. You can see that even Pereira looked surprised by the decision when they announced the unanimous decision victory. Over the last 5 years, Pereira's offense has certainly leveled up. His offense has become much more fluid since, even against the best in the world, he can find a home for his signature left hook. If Po Atan is losing a fight, his hands of stone gets him out of every bad situation. After all, that's exactly what happened in the iconic second fight. See, in their first fight, Adesanya was comfortable with switch hitting and Pereira didn't know what to do with it. In the second fight, however, Pereira did his homework and countered the southpaw cross over and over again. Finding a mark for the left hook is what makes Pereira legendary. Now, with both fighters looking unbeatable, we explore how they can beat each other. How to beat Alex Pereira. With Pereira being the one with a knockout victory and looking invincible in kickboxing, we will blueprint his strengths and weaknesses. You see, a lot of his best offense revolves around getting the opponent to come in so that he can land a big right hand and left hooks. This is where he does his best work. On the outside, he will try to score with left kicks. While it should not be underestimated, it is not the real threat. The biggest threats from Pereira are ranked like this. 1. The left hook. 2. The right overhand. 3. The right knee. 4. The left jumping knee. 5. The right high kick. Everything else is a scoring distraction to set up these 5 attacks that finish his opponents. While his straight punches and low kicks should be respected, they are not what wins fights for him. To bait his opponents to attack first, Pereira developed a low guard which naturally invites the opponent to charge in. This also helped him transfer into MMA to more easily defend takedowns. What are his weaknesses? Despite the amazing highlight reel knockouts, over the years Pereira never developed evasive footwork and remained very hittable. He does not retract his cross with good technique, and instead prefers to remain chambered low to load the left hook. This clear weakness makes him vulnerable to a head kick against a well-prepared opponent. It's also why he will lose most long-range exchanges with a great outside fighter. Pereira also blades his stance dramatically now, which enhances his ability to punch but makes him more susceptible to low kicks. When he knees with his hands down, coming in tall, which makes him vulnerable to punches. If you let Pereira strike first and counter, that is the best chance of hitting him, letting Pereira strike first and counter. When he throws a cross, he doesn't retract and is vulnerable to the right cross counter. After he crosses, he exits out to the right. He is in a perfect position to eat a right high kick. With the habit of slipping across deep in order to load his left hook, the right cross into the right head kick can produce a knockout. The right kick in general is also very open against Pereira due to his hand positioning. Timing a right high kick against his overhand could knock him out as well. All of this revolves around Pereira not having a strong built-in defense when he's leading with offense. The new style of hands down defense often just makes him eat shots, but he's simply able to get away with it due to being built from titanium. So based on all of this, what is Izzy's clearest path to victory? If he is disciplined with straight punches and scoring kicks on the outside, Izzy can outscore Pereira 2-1. This will create urgency from Pereira, making him become impatient. It's important for Adesanya to not charge and instead let Pereira come to him. This is because Izzy does his best work when the opponent charges, and Pereira does his worst work when he's leading with aggression. Stylistically, Izzy is actually the perfect fighter to defeat Pereira. After all, he's invited charges his whole career, knocking most who dare to do so out. If Pereira slips deep against Izzy's cross, he can eat a big right kick. If he slips deep against Izzy's jab, he can eat a big left kick. These are all proven techniques in Adesanya's arsenal throughout his career. While being built from titanium, Pereira is not immune to them. While it's more likely that Adesanya wins by outscoring Pereira, it is possible to knock him out too. How to beat Israel Adesanya. Pereira is very unlikely to win long-range exchanges with Adesanya, so he must weather a technical storm from early on. If he can get Izzy to exchange with him, or lull him into a false sense of security by having a scoring lead, that is where his left hook has the best chance of landing. His most dangerous shot is attacking the chin with the left hook while the opponent protects the jaw, which is how he got Adesanya as well. After all, this is the strategy Pereira has used to knock out most of his opponents. If Pereira can invite Adesanya to lead with the overhand without a setup, that's where his counter overhand has the best chance of landing. Pereira loves it when his opponent throws big punches, as he can use it as a setup. If Adesanya decides to go southpaw to throw a left cross, let him do it a few times to capture the timing for the left hook again. This is also a fight where he might have to lose a few rounds in order to conserve energy to generate big moments later. See, Pereira is dangerous no matter which round. He is willing to lose half a round only to come back harder in the latter half, stealing many prolific wins by doing so. He will lull the opponent into thinking they have a chance of overwhelming him, only to knock them out later. Who will be the victor? No one knows. That is the beauty of fighting. The path to victory for each fighter is how I would blueprint if I was involved in each fighter's camp. And although I've been involved in strategizing multiple UFC championship fights, this is not one that I took part in. The fight can absolutely play out nothing like what I've laid out here. Blueprints are simply trying to create order out of chaos. While the ability to create order is what makes technicians and coaches legendary, at the heart of every fight still exists an element of chaos and unpredictability. My goal has always been to make elite technique and strategy accessible to many fight fans around the world. I hope I accomplished that here for anyone who watches the video. With all that said, I believe that Adesanya will come out the victor. I will always favour the superior technician in a championship fight, and I've been a super fan of the stylebender even before he was famous. Here are some final words from Izzy to finish off this video.
This is a different fighter you're facing now, and now I've become another fighter. I've rebirthed myself.
And I know I'm gonna burn longer. I know he can't last. I know you can't last.
If you haven't subscribed yet, here's a clip for you.
Oh no, that was a Lawrence Kenshin.
It was Kenshin? Yeah. Dude, those guys are so important. That guy's a treasure.
Love his work.